Hey everyone, we're here for our next session, which will be a fireside chat with Rarible. We have Eric and also Dimitri, and I'll let them take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, my name is Dimitri. I'm a research partner at OneKex. And we have Eric Arsenault, head of ecosystem at Rarible Protocol. And yeah, I think we're just going to be jamming about a few key themes, talking about the current state of the NFT market, the future of NFTs. We're going to touch on Rarible Protocol itself. And really, I want this to be open. We have we'll be taking questions, so just feel free to post anything in the chat as we go through. And yeah, with that said, thanks for joining, Eric.
Yeah, awesome being here, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe can you just give a quick background before we kick off on yourself and the protocol?
Yeah, sure. So my background, long story short, engineering background. I did some consulting. I launched a B2C marketplace in 2014, raised some funds, went through all that rigmarole, and then discovered the crypto space in 2017. Tried like forever to find a in, and then I discovered DAOs, and I was like, oh, like this is super cool. DAOs are fun. At that time, it was really just DAO Stack had Genesis DAO, which was kind of like the only active DAO. And so I got super involved there, and immersed myself in the DAO space. Left my job and basically just went full time. And then from then on, I joined basically every DAO that was popping up. By the summer, I was full time in the DAO space in 2018. And then the DAO space exploded. There was like Moloch DAOs and Metacartel and all these other DAOs popping up, and I just stayed really involved from that point forward. I joined DAO Stack, helped grow their team, and then just recently in March joined Rarible and specifically Rarible Protocol, and currently leading their decentralization efforts. So basically structuring the DAO and then also just decentralizing the protocol itself, which isn't an easy task.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess the intersection of DAOs and NFTs is a whole separate beast. Yeah, maybe just touching on the market, I guess, I don't want to be too controversial, but, are we in a bubble? I think that with the prices, what they are, like, are these just JPEG ICOs?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I think there are definitely bubble characteristics to what's going on. I think what's interesting is a lot of these communities are forming around NFTs, and so like there is like a case to be said about like, okay, well maybe there is actually values, right? Like you can buy these NFTs, start being part of a community, and then that community can start being productive, and it's almost like buying an ICO token, right? But it's like, at least like in the ICO bubble, there was like very clear pitches, like, oh, here's our team and here's like our strategy and our roadmap and our product. For a lot of these NFTs, it's like just a picture or like a generative art, so there's a lot less of that. I think sometimes they can materialize into really productive communities, as we've seen. But yeah, I'd say there's like a lot of bubble activity, and oftentimes you don't really know what you're buying. At least I don't. Maybe some people in the know do. But yeah. Are you participating in the bubble, in the NFT craze yourself?
No, I'm a laggard on that side. I don't own any generative art, have not bought any art blocks. I have a loot bag.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. That's my way of jumping in. And I don't think speculation is a bad thing per se. I think these cycles tend to get new folks in. And I think you brought up a good point around where the value comes from, where I think of, Bored Apes, for example, like it is a collection as well as a community.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe another example like Nouns. where
Yeah.
like the auction is, what price are you willing to pay to join the noun community?
Yeah.
And I think that part of quantifying the value of joining a community is something we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of some of the Moloch DAOs where, you basically have to pledge funds in order to join a DAO. But in that case, you're pledging to a DAO directly to the DAO. In this case, yeah, you're basically buying an NFT as some form of pledge, your commitment, putting your skin in the game that you want to be part of this community. I mean, it's still super early. I think there's going to be a lot of failed attempts. You can't have there's a lot of NFT buyers, but it's actually hard to form a community, a really good community. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm sure some really amazing communities are going to form out of this. And there's going to be a lot of NFTs that are just going to be worthless, or they're going to have a floor with very little liquidity. But I'm definitely not that's not my expertise. I've bought some NFTs, but it's, yeah, most of the time I have no idea why something's worth something.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there's the components are, fundamental value, speculative value. As a portion of fundamental value, you probably have the concept of productive assets, and I think we've seen that with ERC20s around potentially having some access to cash flows.
Yeah.
Where with NFTs, it's harder to pull that out. And I think I would bucket the value of community as fundamental for, particularly the collectibles in the space. And you could argue that the value of an Axie should be, present value of discounted cash flows that you get from playing Axie. But then there's also the speculative component of how much actually do you think you could sell this for, a week, a month, or more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely those different components there. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine that a lot of people are thinking of fundamental value too much in what's going on when you see squiggles selling for I don't even know how many millions, but a lot of money. I don't know if there's any fun. I don't think anyone's crunching numbers on that, but yeah, it's super interesting of how these assets could have some fundamental value, but it's probably potentially outweighed by the speculative nature now. But yeah, I think these ups and downs are actually a natural part of the market. I think where we're going is going to have more fundamental value. I would expect, and that this is kind of just part of the bubbling process.
Yeah. Do you think that this kind of intersection of NFTs and DeFi kind of adds to the fundamental value of in NFT, or kind of what do you think about that trend in general, where I could fractionalize an NFT, I could use it as collateral to take out a loan?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's I feel like anything mysterious and not very well defined adds excitement. Where it's really hard for anyone to say this is where we're going. For sure, this is how the market's going to be structured. I think people these ideas and improvements and protocols and innovations just get people dreaming and thinking that holy shit, we're changing the world, which we are. And so I think it's just natural for people to get ahead of themselves because they're nobody really knows where things are going. So in my vision, it could be okay, this type of thing, and another person thinks we're going to the moon next month, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but definitely the DeFi like adding DeFi into the mix just creates more excitement, right? Because you're like, oh, now we can do all these other cool, crazy things that we don't even know what the use cases are for, right? So yeah, it definitely adds to the mix, and I think there's a lot in that space, like fractionalization, and that are really gonna like change our concepts of ownership, right? Like in many different ways. Like I don't know, crowdfunding is an easy one for assets. Typically you buy fungible items as one item, but now you can own little pieces of them, which doesn't seem like too much innovation, but I think it definitely can be, especially for like rare NFTs and typically like Veblen type goods.
Yeah, and that's an important concept in general on how DeFi affects Veblen goods, which for folks who are unfamiliar, it's the idea that the desirability of an asset increases as the price of that asset increases. So if you're able to infinitely fractionalize a punk, how does that affect the market perception of a specific punk if everyone actually has that? So it's kind of like the trend between NFTs and DeFi is trying to take the N out of NFT. But if the fact that it is non-fungible gives the thing value itself, then how does that look like?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows the answer. It's definitely be really interesting. Like if you take let's just say we took CryptoPunks and we fractionalized all of them. So it was just like, now it's a fungible token. It starts looking a lot more just like money, right? Like Bitcoin, or and then it goes into like, what's the value there? It's just the meme, right? It's just like these memes, and it looks a lot less like Veblen goods, and so yeah, I don't know what happens when these like scarce assets become money. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but it's going to be really interesting to kind of see that play out.
Yeah. If you take, I forget what the most expensive punk is, but whatever that is, you fractionalize it into 21 million shards, and then that become Bitcoin-like.
Yeah, totally. It definitely does.
And you probably start to tether that value to Ethereum security. It still wouldn't make a good money because fixed supply assets aren't particularly good for that. But to then people start seeing those fractions as a store of value itself, and even more so than the uncharted punk, especially since it's accessible to many more people in the world.
Yeah, it's a super fascinating topic.
Yeah,
I mean, personally, I'm like probably more excited about NFTs that have some sort of like intrinsic value, or that are gonna like these NFTs that are almost acting like equity in a community or something like that, right? Or NFTs that have utility, or NFTs that even NFTs that can be used in games and stuff like that. I mean, I think that has utility, but well, I shouldn't say, but I was thinking like people aren't going to pay astronomical amounts for game items, but I guess they do.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe switching gears a bit to more on the Rarible side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I'm just curious, like framing wise, there's Rarible Marketplace, Rarible Protocol, Rarible DAO. Could you quickly help folks understand like what the difference is between those three?
Yeah, sure. So Rarible, Rarible.com is the B2C marketplace selling NFTs. It's the marketplace most people know when they think of NFTs. It's a aggregator of sorts, similar to OpenSea, and Rarible.com uses the Rarible protocol. So the Rarible protocol is kind of the back end infrastructure, the smart contracts, the indexer, which for those who don't know, an indexer is like a tool to bubble up NFT metadata. So images, filtering, sorting, all the like that stuff that like nobody likes to deal with, So Rarible protocol is the back end, helps teams build NFT applications. There's about 15 applications building on the Rarible protocol. Rarible.com is one of them. Aside from that, organizationally, they're quite different. So you can almost think of them as two separate startups. Rarible.com is an equity-based company. They have people who are paid employees. There's a legal entity. Rarible protocol, in comparison, is a DAO. So we have no legal entity for our DAO. We're governed by token holders, and people are paid in tokens, and no official HR department hiring people. It's basically a lot more grassroots.
Nice. And yeah, and then so what's been your experience kind of bootstrapping that DAO? Because it's been a few months since it's been live already, but yeah, just curious to hear how that went, because it's not easy, I think, for any team.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I've been in the DAO space for a really long time, but I've never actually scaled a DAO. I think very few people have. I think it's like most people have been part of DAOs. There's probably a handful of people who've properly scaled a DAO. So it's been definitely a really interesting challenge, building up the community, getting people excited about the vision and the product. It's been fascinating. It's been really fun. And I think we're slowly really building some good momentum. And I think it starts with the technology in the space. We're in a super exciting space, and we have a really incredible tool, which is allows NFT applications to come to life in a much quicker go-to-market time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people are getting super excited about that. So it's really fun to be part of that. And it's really fun to be part of something that like other people are super excited about too. So it kind of like helps me stay motivated.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the hardest part is like, how do you translate excitement into contributions?
Yeah.
Where you could get folks who are aligned with the vision of a protocol, and then you get folks who are frankly financially motivated through having some portion of the token supply, but then there needs to be some transition between a passive observer in a DAO and an active contributor, which also is along a spectrum, where on one side your core team, on the other you reply to a governance forum post. So I'm curious, kind of like how have you motivated contributors or kind of like passive participants to more actively participate in the DAO?
Well, there's like I don't know what the name of the diagram, but there's like a circle. There's like a diagram out there showing like contributors that are like observers, and then people who are actually committing time, and then like core contributors. I don't know. I've seen that passed around in the DAO space.
Hey, let me stop you there, Eric. I think your camera shut off. I don't know if that's just on my side.
Can you guys see me?
If anyone from the chat could say yes or no.
I see myself. So
maybe just poor connection, but yeah, I think we still hear you. So
yeah, all right. I'll keep chatting. So what was I saying? Yeah, there's this diagram, where there's loose contributors and then getting more core contributors. And in our case, we have about 20 to 30 people who are who show up in our calls every week. So that's the number of people who are kind of loose contributors, I'd say. And then people who are part-time, full-time, it's more than that. I'd say it's around like 8 or 9 full-time people, but I'd say half of those people are part-time. So I'd say it's around like 15 people who are loosely contributing. And then full-time, it's still pretty small. It's like 3, 4 people. So definitely, like, one of the biggest challenges has been growing the number of contributors, and specifically growing like values aligned contributors. I think it's really hard to hire traditional Web 2 people into a DAO. Especially like C-level type people. I think their expectations and like the culture and like for various reasons, I think it's really hard. I think like some people can make the switch. But it's really, I think it's really hard because there's a certain culture building up in the DAO, and like, you hire an executive or something like that, and it kind of like, it's a curveball to the whole community. So juggling that has been challenging because on one hand, we want to really aggressively grow the DAO, find really powerful contributors, while still retaining, like, giving ownership to people who are like, have been there from the beginning and are really helping foster the community. So
yeah, that makes sense. I think DAOs are particularly well suited to people who have very much like self-starter personalities, like
Totally.
way more than you would find in a traditional like corporation. And the difference here is that their contributions ideally are incentivized by like a very direct value accrual.
Yeah, exactly.
Assuming that they're properly incentivized from the beginning. Like there could be some issues there where a person maybe wants to contribute, but they aren't being somehow incentivized enough, or
Right.
we create a more incentive compatible structure to get people to go from 5 hours a week to 40 hours a week. And what's that progression to saying, yeah, I do want to join the core team. And I think that area of scaling DAOs, especially when you get to 50, 100, 200 person DAOs, I think is still kind of being figured out.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much like a human-centered approach, like, over the past couple of weeks. Like I've been having one-on-one calls with most contributors of being like, what do you want? Like what are your goals? And like, it's really about like, it's like growing any team, I think, where like, it's really, DAOs are amazing because they offer a bit more flexibility, but at the end, they're really like about like bonds, right? And being like, okay, Dimitri, what do you want as a person? Like, like, do you want to spend more time on this? Do you want to cut back your hours? Are you happy? And it's really just about making like an environment that people are happy to be in, and they want to contribute their time. And so if you do that, I think people are motivated, and generally people in DAOs, as far as I've seen, like most DAOs, people are there because they want to be there. It's like a very different environment from a corporation where like I've worked for some companies, but I don't think I've ever been like happy working for a company. It's always been like, oh yeah, this is a good job, but like can't wait to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I know we have maybe around 5 minutes left. I want to touch on one more topic, which is the kind of governance experiments that you're doing with the DAO. It's timely around what Vitalik has been talking about around token or like coin voting. So could you just share with folks what you've been thinking around there?
Yeah. Well, I just a bit of context. So I worked at DAOstack for a few years, and the DAOs at DAOstack are reputation-based DAOs. So we had a lot of debates about coin voting versus reputation-based DAOs and like all that. And I still believe that token-based voting. I mean, I think it can work in certain situations, but I don't think that it works in most situations. There's some like serious flaws with token-based voting. And so what I've been proposing in the Rarible DAO is that we experiment with some sort of reputation layer so that people within the community and people who are contributing at the DAO level can have proper representation. And so practically what that would look like, at least there's a proposal in the forum to discuss that, is giving contributors NFTs that would give them a certain amount of voting power. And then in terms of voting power for the DAO, you would split basically 50-50 token-based voting, and then NFT-based ownership voting, where the 50% with NFTs would be contributors and people actually working, and then token holders would also have their representation for the other half, basically.
Got it. So some weighted system between ERC20s and 721s that are partly DAO contributors, partly maybe team investors. There's a question from the audience around just like, why not just quadratic voting? Is that just oversimplifying the thing?
I mean, that's a potential. That's a better step where you have better representation for sure. Yeah, that's also an alternative. But I guess the idea, like, I really just like the idea of having contributors to a DAO, to a community, have like an ownership token, and be like, yeah, I actually have a significant say. Like we as a community have like 50% ownership, and we can make decisions as a community. Whereas like quadratic voting, like there's always going to be like the cap table, and at the top it's always going to be the VC funds, right? And like if I look at Compound and I go in there and you look at the or Uniswap, right? I mean, it doesn't make me feel like I want to be part of that community. Like why would I participate in this? Why would I sweat? It just feels like working for a company when you look at like the voting power and it's just a bunch of like VC whales. Whereas like I want to be part of a community where like, yeah, like we're empowered, like we can make really good decisions, and that's what I want to create. And I think it's a very big difference philosophically. And I think it's one of the reasons why Ethereum won, like as a blockchain, is because of a cool culture. And so I think culture translates to the governance layer, and so that's what I'm trying to propose. But needs to pass by token holders, so we'll see.
I wonder how incentive compatible that vote's going to be.
Yeah, I am not sure, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And another interesting aspect of that NFT idea is it also gives people a sense of belonging in a way. Totally. I think that's a special thing around collectibles, where you feel like you're part of some community. Like this is almost like you're part of a collectible that is also a protocol.
100%. Yeah, exactly. We've been talking like, okay, what if these membership tokens was like a profile picture? It was like really like a badge of honor, right? Or like, yeah, I'm not a rare whale, but you know what? Like I have this membership pass, which is freaking badass, and we own this thing together. Anyways, that would be my dream. We'll see if it can happen.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. So maybe we have 1 minute or something. Yeah,
we should wrap up.
Maybe just as a last question, what's your most controversial take on NFTs?
That NFT transaction volumes are going to surpass ERC20 transaction volumes, like within 3 years. I don't know. We'll see. Don't hold me to that. But yeah, that there's going to be a shitload of high value NFTs, and value of that is going to surpass fungible tokens.
Interesting.
It's probably a longer discussion than we have.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I love that. Cool. Well, this was great. Yeah, and if the audience, if you're excited about NFTs and you like to contribute to DAO in the space, head over to rarible.org or their Discord and kind of ask questions, see what they're up to. But this is great. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to transition to the next session now.